To this debate, me and my buddy were arguing over the weekend. It had nothing to do with the Browns, so this is not a Brown-specific question. It's a big-picture football question.
Right.
But we could apply it to Cleveland because we're here in Cleveland. In today's day and age, what is more important in today's NFL to making a good running game? Is it a good offensive line or is it a good running back? I know it's a chicken or the egg question, but in your opinion, what is more valuable in today's day and age to having a consistent, effective, and frankly, for lack of a better word, a really good run game? Is it the running back or the offensive line?
It's the offensive line. I think it's been the offensive line. I know me and Mike talked about this upstairs. I wouldn't even consider it this day and age. I think that football has always been won and lost in the trenches. And I think the Denver Broncos teams, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, should show you that if you got a good offensive line and a quality system, you can put any running back there, and that running back can run for 1,000 yards. Hell, Reuben Drones ran for 1,000 yards in that system. Offensive line is going to always, kind of get the edge to me over running back because, again, it all starts up front, and that's where football traditionally, no matter how much like the rule package changed, that's where it's always won and lost at.
This is a tough one. I played offensive line, and I blocked for some really good running backs. And I think that people are getting it twisted a little bit. They don't think that the elite running backs make that much of a difference. Well, that's not necessarily true. Jerome Ford had 813 yards, right? Nick Chubb's back there, that's a 1,400-yard year. Because there's running backs who, yes, may be fast, yes, may be able to do some things in the open field. But the elite backs get you 3 yards when you were supposed to get hit for 0. The elite backs give you extra yards because they always leaning forward. Elite backs always make the first guy miss. When you up front, when you blocking, the coach will tell you, hey, listen, so-and-so back there, Nick Chubb, we can't block everybody up here, right? They bringing this from the strong side. We can't block everything. We need you to make that safety miss. And good backs miss rate are tremendous. Good backs broken tackles are tremendous. And yes, you could get a nice stacked offensive line. But the reality is it's very difficult to have one of the best offensive lines year in and year out. It's tough. Like, I can remember the Hogs in the 70s had great lines. The Dallas Cowboys had tremendous lines with Emmitt Smith. Heck, the Browns have had a good offensive line for the better parts of 3 to 4 years. However, when you're running the ball that way and you're running it a lot, you get injuries, you get people injured. Tackle is a position that takes up a lot of money on your salary cap, and people don't value guards that much. So 9 times out of 10, it's very difficult to see really good teams with a stacked offensive line. It's more like hit or miss here, and we're going to make sure we play action and keep the quarterback safe. For me, I think it's kind of close, but I would say, to me, would I rather have an elite running back or an elite offensive line? I would say, if I didn't have an elite offensive line, I could get other positions where I could be elite and kind of spread the wealth a little bit. I would take the running back because I feel like an elite running back gets a lot of yards that people that aren't elite don't get.
You changed the question, right?
No, what you mean?
No, he did it.
He answered it with offensive line is more important than a running back.
No, G picked running back.
He said elite running back over elite line. I think
I would take.
No, but
all things being equal, if you ask me like how would I go about it, I would say, listen, an elite offensive line or an elite running back. I would be like, well, look, I could get an elite running back. I don't gotta pay him that much. If I got an elite offensive line, you the Cleveland Browns, you paying guards $16 million. You paying tackles $16 million.
So what is your pick then?
I go with the elite running back.
Okay, because the way you started, I thought you were saying offensive line was more important.
I would go with overall, you talk about pass blocking, but we talk about running the ball, right?
No, just for the run game.
Okay, I would take the running back.
So you're the tiebreaker, Jay. Which way are you going?
I'm going offensive line, and here's why. And it's really not a tiebreaker because they both said running back.
No, I said offensive line.
Oh, you did say offensive.
Yeah,
line.
I said offensive line.
Jason, no man's land for the last.
No, I thought I thought you started by saying that it was running back.
No. For me, it's offensive line. I feel like that football is won and lost in the trenches.
I do too.
It always starts up front. I think G's point is, he said Jerome Ford ran for 813. Nick Chubb would have ran for 14. My mind is, You ain't finna get a Nick Chubb every single day.
And well, the problem with that argument is because I would say, well, just look at the yards per carry that Chubb had versus everyone else.
Right.
So if it was, and that's it's such a tough question because I think they both talked around it. I'm going to talk around it now too. The answer to this question is yes. They're both important, and I don't know that you can have one without the other. Like it's because there's the experiment is this.
Yeah.
You take the running back out, but you keep the line the same. Mm-hmm. When you do that, why doesn't everybody have 5 yards per carry in the Browns line? Because Nick Chubb is decidedly better than those other guys.
Special.
So, but if you look at trend in the NFL has basically told running backs, you're not important. You're not relevant. You're interchangeable. They don't draft them high. They don't sign them to big money deals. They don't get big money extensions. They just exist because you need someone to run the football. Now, I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong.
I think people be tripping when they do that.
But that's the trend. That's the trend. And the reason you can't just look at the yards per carry last year with Nick Chubb, who was, I think it's 6 yards a carry when he went out. Now, granted, he only played a game and a half.
Right.
Nobody else was anywhere near that. But you have to also take into account that the offensive line was a game of musical chairs all year last year for the Browns.
If you go back and look through history, I can think of a couple teams that the running back was a product of the offensive line. Go back and look at Franco Harris, great offensive line, right? You go back and look at John Riggins with the Washington Redskins at the time, great offensive line. You can argue that those guys up front were the reason that he got the yardage that he got. Emmitt Smith is another guy, but I could look at O.J. Simpson, Barry Sanders, Eric
they did it
Dickerson,
themselves.
Adrian Peterson
had nothing. Chris Johnson had nothing. There's great players where I could go up and down the list of all top 10. Walter Payton didn't really have the craziest line, right? But those teams gave the ball to the special dude, and he made it work. So to me, I can only find a couple of guys who were all-time runners who had equally as great offensive lines, and rather than guys, it's 100 guys who didn't have no offensive line that was the playmaker on the team.
But think about, okay, you great example, right? But you just named some dogs that played running back. But think about those teams that didn't necessarily have a dog at running back, but their team always ranked between top 5, top 10 at rushing. Like
The Shanahans,
like you get the Jets with Curtis Martin back there, or like the Packers when Dorsey Levens was back there, things like that.
Now,
right?
Curtis Martin 5 all time.
Yeah, his numbers crept up there.
Curtis Martin 5 all time.
Listen.
Hall of Famer.
On teams that didn't have playoff success.
Yeah, at all.
And you mentioned Shanahan's.
But
When Mike Shanahan was in Denver, it was like, okay, this guy's out, in.
that's what I'm saying.
Out,
Ruben Jones
in.
ran for 1,000 yards.
I think they're special when it comes to the run concepts. They teach run game better than anybody in the world.
How about this for
I
kind
just
of a
think that-
conclusion? With the exception of a handful of guys over the last decade, it is the line. But to say it universally is the line takes away from guys like Barry Sanders
Right.
and Walter Payton, who played long enough, especially Payton, and was great for such a long period of time. His offensive line changed, but the offensive run game never
Jim
did.
Brown didn't have no linemen.
I'm not equipped to say how they.
I
don't know.
just if you just on face value say, well, let me go see how many Hall of Famers he played with. You're not going to find very many.
I don't know.
You know, but
I mean, Barry Sanders did have Lomas Brown in Detroit.
But by the way, it's a different game. You have to say that too.
It is definitely a different game.
It's a different game.
But I think
guys was getting opportunity.
there are running backs that can be great without a great offensive line.
Yes.
How is an offensive line ever great without a great running back?
Well, Slayer and them dudes in Denver was crazy. They had Mike, what's his name? Mike
Anderson.
Mike Anderson, Orlandis Gary.
They all looked great behind that offensive line.
I don't know the numbers, of course, but as we're having this conversation, I thought about two dudes who played for the Chiefs, Priest Holmes and Jamal Charles.
Oh.
Were they a product of a good line, or were they just damn good backs, or was it a little bit of both?
And you forgot Larry Johnson.
Yeah, Larry Johnson too.
Like,
Go back even further. Christian Okoye was a great back.
I don't know who they had up there like that.
The offensive line for some of those, when they had Willie Rofe,
What's the
they had
guard?
a really good line. I'll look up who the rest of them was, but
Rofe might have been the only Hall of Famer.
There's
in that
another
Give me
Hall
one
of Fame. He
sec,
played guard. I can't remember his name yet.
is it Willie Anderson? Did they have the Willies?
I gotta look it up. No,
Yeah, check it out. See
No.
what
There's
they find.
that 2004 area. What do you think?
Or like the year that Rudy Johnson had a good year for the Bengals.
Oh, Brian
Was
Wooders.
that
That's
product
That's
of the
his
line?
name, Brian Waters.
They had
Like,
Rofe and Wooders were both Hall of Famers. Shields and
Yeah,
Wellborn.
Waters.
They're two right side of their offensive line, both Pro Bowlers. So they had four.
Oh no, they was good.
So-
they was running. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think if the offensive line is great, you're going to have a really good run game. And Denver is the example, and all of Shanahan's teams there. It didn't matter. I mean, they just were they were running for 1,200, 1,400 yards every year with different guys.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the example where a great running back had an awful year because he was behind an awful line.
Saquon Barkley.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This is where this conversation started, by the way.
Okay.
No, yeah, that's very fair.
But is Saquon great though?
Well,
you know, I think Saquon,
that's to be
Saquon
determined.
can be great.
Could be.
it's kind of like this, Jay. Like I
Man,
think
he was something.
Like
I
Saquon
thought-
had one good year, if we being honest.
I think
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith gets
not unfair.
Emmitt
Partly
Smith
'cause the
gets
line's so
knocked.
bad.
Obviously he's the all-time leading rusher. Emmitt Smith actually gets knocked because of just how great his offensive line was.
Yeah, like they don't get he doesn't get enough credit. For it.
He's never mentioned in the top 10 running
that
back.
offensive line.
And
let's face it.
he had a great tight end, and he had a great blocking fullback.
Yeah,
like-
and also had a passing game to take pressure off the run game.
And a number one and a number two. I'm like, yeah, that was cheating. I see why they downgraded him.
You know who you can blame for all that? The Minnesota Vikings
Boy, all them picks.
and the Herschel Walker trade.
All them picks. Now that was a guy I thought was going to be a monster. Between and coming out of Georgia, Herschel Walker was that dude.
He was.
Do you guys want to know what the chat said?
What's that?
We put a poll up. Offensive line or running back? How do you think it was split?
I think they went offensive line.
G, what do you think?
Probably, there's a misnomer. People think offensive linemen. That's just what it is.
We
I'm gonna
love Nick Chubb here, though.
It's 55-45 offensive line versus Chubb.
Earl, what do you think?
I think they're going offensive line.
75% went with the offensive line.
Yeah.
75-25 was the split.
I think they got it right.
I actually do at the end of the day.